So I think I've met all of you here before, so I won't kind of give you a big sort of backstory to sort of who I am, but what I thought might be useful today is to share a tool or kind of thinking sort of time really, as well as tools and strategies around resilience. When I thought about all the different kind of tools and the ways that I help leaders in different ways in their respective roles, one of the themes definitely at the moment, and I think way into the future, is about resilience. And I personally have found resilience quite a toughie this year and needs to have regular focus. So I just thought it'd be really helpful as a group of kind of trainers and facilitators and coaches just to give ourselves some time out to stop and think about resilience today as well. So I guess my first question is, how would we describe resilience? What does resilience mean to us before we drill into some of the detail? What does resilience mean for us?
Bounce back ability.
Bounce back ability.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay, fabulous.
Ability to cope in a crisis.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
See it as a challenge rather than a problem.
Yes, yeah. Kind of framing it as in, it may seem like a problem and actually it can feel like it, but the value in them reframing that into an opportunity or something that we can tackle. Okay, yeah, thank you. Any others?
It's like creating an armour really, isn't it, against, so we've all talked about our fears today, and to become resilient to them, it's always a cheesy phrase, isn't it, to say facing your fears, but it is really, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, actually, yeah, facing your fears is one way of developing your resilience. And at the same time, being resilient enables me to better face my fears. So kind of the two go hand in hand really, really well. To think about, if I'm going to be working at my best, what are the different elements to enable me to do that? So I think it's also recognising that we're not superhumans, and that we have certain days where we feel less resilient than others, and that's absolutely fine. So one of the sort of first tips I will share that I found really, really useful is to keep a resilience diary. And you know, once a day, just to sort of take some time out. You may want to kind of add that on to another activity like a gratitude diary or whatever you might kind of do at different practices people use, but almost like to kind of give yourself a number out of 10. And I find this quite helpful to do in the morning, because I at the moment, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm feeling very different each day. Today's a really good day. Yesterday was a good day, but I know a couple of days last week, a few wobbly kind of moments. So I think just taking some time to kind of recognize that and see how sure-footed I'm feeling, or whether there's some wobbly kind of paves along the way, will then help me to consider what needs to be happening for me that day to enable me to manage that for myself. Firstly, that good old adage of putting your own sort of face mask on first, but also then it enables me to be the best I can be for, you know, my kids. I'm likely to be, we had a lovely morning this morning, no snapping, no shouting, great, everyone went off really kind of sort of harmoniously, and it was lovely. But yeah, there are other days where that doesn't kind of sort of feel quite so good. So yeah, thinking about what's going to help to enable you to kind of embrace that really. So one last question before I'm going to kind of introduce you to some other, a couple of visual things. What are the benefits for us and others in staying as resilient as we can, as often as we can? What benefits does that bring?
I think for your mental health, that's the benefit, because if you can, like you say, wake up and be able to recognise, oh gosh, I'm not in a good place. This is what I need to do to be able to make sure that day actually occurs in a more calm and easier fashion. I think that's a biggie. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jules.
Yeah, and also I suppose it's because you always hear those people, or when we used to work in the regular conventional world, you'd have those people that come in and they clearly got out of bed the wrong side that day, and that was it. The day was rubbish. If it was raining, the day was going to be rubbish. If somebody cut them up in the traffic, the day's ruined. And you know, I think recognising that really early on, a guy's cut me up in the car, I'm not going to see him again until at least I go home, if ever. What's it really going to matter? You know, it might have annoyed me, it might have scared me, it may have made me jump, but I can bounce back from that.
Yeah,
like I said, bounce back ability, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, when we're feeling more resilient, yeah, we can bounce back more readily, more easily than I would say on days perhaps where you feel less resilient. But again, it's knowing the signs, isn't it? Knowing an internal reaction or something you feel like you want to say or do, but then notice it, yeah, actually that's perhaps not the most appropriate thing to do. But when we're feeling more resilient, then actually we're better able to brush those things off.
Absolutely.
Rather than let them stick, stick and sort of stay with us for the remainder. Any other benefits, sort of short and kind of longer term, on keeping resilient as often as we can, as best we can?
Like you said, Garen, it impacts other people around you as well. So if you are staying calm or you're feeling more resilient about a situation, then others around you might also feel that energy, and they might think, okay, yeah, we can do this, almost as a group. Whereas if you suddenly start to say, oh my gosh, I don't know how we can do this, how are we going to move forward, then they might start to think those negative thoughts too, and so it kind of spreads around you. So if you're more resilient, then it can uplift others around you as well.
Absolutely. Yes, it's the behaviours we sort of share. It's the energy as well, isn't it? There's one of the quotes that I like to use is, your energy introduces you before you speak, because it actually, how we arrive into a situation. So whether that's how I arrive downstairs for breakfast, or when I arrive on a session like this, or whatever it might be, just being really sort of mindful, but also accepting that we will have days where it's harder. And you mentioned, I think it was you, Mark, earlier, about vulnerability, and again, there can be times when you think, actually, I'm going to just share that I'm finding this difficult today. And I think, again, through everything that's happened this year, people are more generally open to saying it, but also hearing it. It's still quite brave, though, to actually say the words out and let someone else know that you're finding it a bit of a struggle. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is just to take a couple of minutes and think about all the different strategies, all the different ways that help you build and maintain your resilience. And then what I'm going to ask you to do in a few moments is to start to type your ideas into the chat box. If you see one mentioned, don't worry about sort of repeating it unless you both type at the same time, in which case that's absolutely fine. But just give you a couple of minutes to think about what are your strategies, what helps you build resilience and stay resilient.
Struggling to think how to explain this one.
Or a picture, Mark, if it's easier. Mind you, it'd be hard to put your picture in the chat box.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
I could probably say it out loud, but I'm trying to work out how to write it down.
Yeah, don't we? Yeah,
Yeah.
share that with us in a few moments. Then that's
Yeah,
fine. There will
I'll
be
do
some that
that.
are harder to articulate, aren't they? Yeah. Some great ideas being shared. Thank you.
So let's have a little look.
You type first.
Oh, I need to. Sorry.
Tony, it's interesting that when you shared, actually, I was chatting to a colleague yesterday around ways to develop a thicker skin. I had some conversations with my husband recently about things that I'm finding difficult, and he's kind of very carefully was kind of playing back, I understand, well, certain things frustrate you, but there's something there about developing your thicker skin and perhaps being less sensitive to things. This linked to like teenage children, by the way, or looming teenage years with children, and how we kind of manage ourselves with regards to that. And that was one of the tips that came up, Tony, around that detachment piece, almost like seeing it through a different pair of eyes. Would somebody else interpret it in the same way, or is it more my own kind of stuff that's going on right now? I found that really, really helpful.
Normally, a good one that I heard was that you imagine somebody, a hero or someone you look up to, and say, if they were standing here now looking at the same situation you're in, would they react the same? For instance, if you're in a stressful situation, how would Daniel Craig handle it?
Yeah.
And you're in his eyes.
Yeah.
Or Barack Obama if you're about to do a speech. So it's these sorts of things you then detach and you become the other person from their eyes and their viewpoint. And how would you behave? So you're acting out the other person, and that then reinforces your strength, allows you to overcome the situation far more easily.
I really like it. And actually that also reminds me, Tony, of the Amy Cuddy's fake it till you make it.
Absolutely.
And actually there
that helps.
Where I thought, I know I can do this, I've done it before, but I'm not feeling it. The imposter syndrome piece that we've mentioned as well kind of comes into play from time to time, more so this year I'd say than previous years. Everything that's kind of going on. So it's like, yeah, well, I'm going to just, and it has worked. It has kind of created a lift, bringing a strategy into play. So thank you for that. So Mark, what was one that you wanted to share that you found?
Yeah, I was just funny enough, I was just trying to type that one in there. It's looking at, sometimes it's when you have the issue and looking at what the worst possible outcome could be, because you know we pretty much know that over 95% of the things we worry about don't even happen, do they?
Yeah.
And you know, I've suffered like really bad anxiety over the last few years, and I think one of you guys said a minute ago about actually I think you said it, Karen, it's okay to be vulnerable. And up until the last few years, I never used to feel like I was vulnerable. I used to feel like I was unstoppable and unbreakable, and you know, nothing really bothered me. And I think actually accepting that now is good. So to actually be faced on with an issue is now to like look back and think, look ahead and think, okay, so this is the issue now. What is the worst that's going to happen? You know, okay, that's the absolute extreme, but what are the percentages of that? And if you then sometimes break it down and think, okay, well, the worst case scenario, there could be less than 1/100% of a chance of that happening. Should we start worrying about it now, you know, and look at what we can do to move forward on it? So yeah, it's just breaking it. I think it's breaking the issue down and realizing it's probably not Mount Everest, it's probably just a
molehill.
A molehill, yeah. Make a mountain out of a molehill. Go full of the cliches today.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So we've got mindfulness mentioned a few times, meditation, positive mindset, gratitude, as you say, being with others who are also resilient, a kind of a resilient role model, fun, yoga. Yeah, brilliant, lovely, thank you. And there'll be more. So what I would encourage you to do is to kind of keep creating a list that feels relevant for you, because different things will have a different impact on us, and sometimes it is about trying something different, something new, but there may be something there that you think I can just really relate to that. Laughter for me, Craig, you mentioned, not Craig, Michelle, sorry, I said it without looking at the picture. Michelle, you mentioned humour. I know laughter certainly works for me. So last week's Great British Bake Off had me in hysterics, so I'm really ready for tonight's episode. I know it's going to give me a boost. So
the reason why I put that is because when lockdown started, I did with my neighbours, I started street dancing, and I used my fancy dress and music and decorating the front of my house every Sunday at 7 o'clock. And that made my neighbours around me and others that came from other streets in Hardingstone to my street have a laugh and just forget that COVID was happening. Yeah. And even though it was social distance with everyone, it was, humour was a big part of it.
Yeah.
That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, Michelle. I mean, that got in the news and the papers and everything, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I'm doing a special one for Halloween because it's on a Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We were following that in town.
Yeah.
That's really, I love that. I might have to think about that. We've been racking our brains about Halloween and how to, still get out there and have some fun. So that's given me some inspiration. So what I'm gonna ask you to do in a moment is I'm going to ask you to create a wheel. So a wheel with 8 kind of sort of segments in, or 6 if you want, 7, doesn't have to be an even number. So I'm kind of basing this tool on the balance wheel, which I've used in coaching conversations and leadership training, and it's brilliant because it's really helpful as a self-reflection tool to consider where am I now on a particular area. So today I'm going to use it for resilience. I've used it before for time management. I've used it before for kind of almost like assessing how satisfied are we in different parts of our life, the most important elements. So today it's all about resilience. So these were some of my strategies, and you've mentioned some of these already. So feel free to kind of create your own wheel with your own headers. I just want to kind of briefly walk through these. So self-care piece has come up with a few of you. So thinking about exercise, thinking about mindfulness, gratitude, diet. There's a whole host of things that can kind of come out through that. The balance and boundaries one, for me, this is about creating a balance between where I'm putting my time and energy into different parts of my world. So yesterday I had a really long day, and I was kind of going at 8:30, and I was like, you know, lots of energy still, but I know I can't sustain that every day of the kind of working week. And I don't particularly want to either, because that takes me away from kind of family and everything. So there's something in here for me around balance and boundaries, the hours that we work, when we're accessible, when I use my phone. So generally my phone goes on its cradle to be charged at 8 o'clock. And when I do that, I sleep amazingly well, which kind of goes into this one. The self-awareness part we've talked a little bit about, in just really taking time to notice you and your reactions to things, what creates a trigger, what heightens resilience, what perhaps dials it down or drains it. Another one here is staying connected. So the different people in your world, family, friends, kind of colleagues, your opportunities to stay connected. And of course, we're doing so much virtually now, and it's brilliant that we've got these technology platforms, but it can still have an impact on our resilience if we can't see people or hug them. So again, it's thinking about what you're able to do with regards to that. This one here, have a plan. So thinking about, I know for me, when I've got a week or at least a day planned out, being really clear what the 3 things that need to happen today, rather than just kind of meandering it through it. And again, it's a very sort of personal thing here, but if I'm focused and really clear, I'm doing this because it links to this goal, or, you know, helping me kind of stay in touch with customers, whatever it might be. So knowing that they're the things that have to happen. Focusing on what I can control. This is a biggie for me. And I would say as well, particularly through this year with all the massive change and uncertainty, and it feels like there's so much we can't do, so much we can't control. It's really drilling it down and think about what can I do? So I can pick up the phone, I can reach out, I can laugh, I can go into the street and do some dancing, as Michelle shared with us earlier. So that, yeah, what can I do? What's within my control, and what impact will that have on me and others? This one here, so it's a lot of writing in a small box here. I've used this as one of the tools in the toolbox. I meant to ask you what you thought that was, actually, because I'm working on my drawing skills, just in case it was a wonky toolbox. One of the tools that I love to use are strengths, but particularly those strengths are energizing, strengths that give you energy. So I have resilience as one of my sort of strengths in my profile. It also records as one that drains me if it's overly used. And of course, this year, it's important. It has a huge purpose. But with that, there's going to be kind of knock-on effects. So this is where the other elements, bringing in other strengths. And actually, for me, one of those is growth. So it's trying out something different, whether it's a personal thing, a fitness thing, or whether it's on a sort of professional level. So I've signed up for a couple of CPD programs this term. So they're mine, but feel free to create your own wheel. And I'm just being mindful of time, but what I'm going to ask you to do is to, once you've got your own headers, I'm going to ask you to take a few moments to think about how would you rate your kind of satisfaction levels around those sort of strategies and resilience right now. So for example, staying connected, what would you rate it if that was one of yours, between 1 and say 10? So for me at the moment, I'd probably put that as a 7. So what I would then do, just going to try and do this with holding it, is just create a little bit of a mark in here to indicate that I've given it a 7. If you do that for each of yours, or do it for a few for now, and then I'll call you back and then we'll do a very quick breakout exercise.
Karen, if you do need an extra 5 minutes or so, we've got plenty of time today.
Kind of hoped you were going to say that.
Yeah, if Serena starts around about just before 10:30,
Yeah.
10.
10, sorry, not 11, yeah.
I'll give Serena half an hour as well then.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. So give you just another minute to look at your scores. Don't worry about doing all of them, but if you've got a few done, that would be amazing.
It's quite interesting because it's some of the ones that I know that I'm lacking in.
Do you know what, we use this balance wheel quite a lot with our school sessions.
Okay. Yeah.
And generally there's times where we do it ourselves when we're in the school lesson, in a school workshop, and it's absolutely fascinating to see how you move quite a lot as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like how you go up and down quite a lot.
Yeah, it moves within the same day. It can kind
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good point there, Mark, because it's not a tool that you pick up and use and then all kind of fixes itself as such. It's using it on a regular basis. I would sort of say even just once a month, pulling it out, having it visual. So I've done a few visuals recently. I've got them all on my pin board, but they're great as a reminder then of actually what's my focus going to be. And if I'm feeling it, actually, I can't think, oh, what do I need to do to work on this? I'll perhaps just look at the strategies here and think, well, actually, what's lacking? What do I need a dose of? Little pick me up.
It's really interesting because some of the things that you've put on there are areas that just before we went away that I sort of recognised I'd slipped down quite a lot on. And while we was away, you know, one of the things that we're good at whilst we're sort of relaxing is talking about things and future and planning and where we are and stuff. And yeah, so there's a few on there that we discussed, and I said, you know, I know that, say, for one part, staying connected, because of this whole lockdown, I got totally used to just being in my own house on my own. And you forget to connect to other people. And I realised I kind of almost not reclused, but stopped being as proactive in contacting people, and it's bad. So that's one of my things that I'm working on. That's to work on when we got back. Is no,
and it's great because you can do something about as well. I find that really empowering, and that again linked the whole resilience piece. If it's because I think we spend so much time in the news and everything and talking and sharing about things that, you know, have been taken away from us and we can't do right now. So actually rewiring the brain to focusing on what we can do kind of brings so many sort of benefits. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jules. So what I'm going to ask you to do, we're going to go into breakout rooms, I'd say for about probably 3 or 4 minutes, Mark, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you need me to do anything to manage that, or are you happy to do that?
No, I can do that for you. So if I bring everybody back in about 4 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know
if 23 minutes past.
If there's an option to give people a 1 minute warning to let them know we're going to sort of move you out sort of soon. I mean, use all your time. You don't have to kind of come back sooner, but just to kind of give you something to explore. 2 things really. To choose or select one of the strategies that you've rated quite highly, one of your higher strategies, as in your sort of satisfaction levels against that one, and just to think about and share with your partner or partners, what is it that you're doing right now, consciously or otherwise, to enable it to be a higher number? So what are you doing to make that happen? And the second piece I'm going to ask you to talk about is which one of these is lower than you'd like it, and what ideas have you got to take it up a notch? So if you've rated it as a 3 or a 4, how could you move it to a 5 or a 6? And my steer would be to kind of move it up gradually. You might find that one action has a massive impact, but it's about sort of sizable steps rather than it feeling too overwhelming. So yeah, talk about one that you've rated highly and what you're doing to create that. And then secondly, which one do you feel needs attention and what ideas have you got? And share that. And then we'll ask you to come back and we'll have a quick share as a bigger group.
Cool. Right. Okay, I'll hit open the rooms. You should have a room request now. There you go. Which room should we join?
Well, the one that we're supposed to, aren't we?
No, because we're hosts, we're still here. Join that one.
Oh.
So have you got a breakout room?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's go there with Karen and.
Oh, are we the only one there, or are we back?
First one's back. First one's back. I think that's how that's worked. Yes, it has. We're the main ones in, so everyone's still in a room.
They're using every second.
Oh dear.
We're the three. We're the three that just straight to the point. Yeah, that's it. No messing.
No dilly-dallying. Yes, we got to the point. It's actually quite strange. We should have come out, and this is the main room, I'm assuming.
That's what I'm thinking. I clicked main room, and it just says 3 participants.
Yeah. How odd. Ah, here we go.
Here they all come. Yeah.
Back in the room.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, God, that went so quick, didn't it?
Yeah, too quick.
Yeah, we were saying probably a bit more time on that would be really helpful. If it'd be great to hear from a couple of you with regards to either something that you've got high level and what you're doing, or perhaps something you want to improve on. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so it was interesting. We found in our group with me, my connection with friends and family is very high. I've put 9 to 10 because straight away I kept the connection with my neighbours, with street dancing, dog walking, volunteering, you know, delivering food parcels to the vulnerable on the estate. And then with my runners, because I have a running group, I set up virtual quizzes. We had, you know, meetings. I had regular contact with them because I knew mental health was going to be a big issue, especially with some of them. And that did extend to the park run page as well, to the wider audience. And my weakest was, I said, being around positive people. I'm such a positive person, I draw negativity towards me, and that can get too much for me sometimes, and I start feeding off that negativity and it brings me right down. Yeah. And I don't realise till I crash and I go down.
So with that in mind, Michelle, having reflected on that, what you perhaps could do to help reduce that kind of decline, or to kind of keep the levels more manageable?
To be honest, yeah, I would say that's still a work in progress, because I've got the personality where I just can't help myself. I like to help others and just be there. So I would say that is something I still need to work on. I can't just switch it off at the moment. I don't know the right tools just yet.
I mean, just one thought, Michelle, that kind of came to mind was in this sort of area here around the sort of balance and boundaries. So what time becomes your time where actually you've done enough, and it's now about kind of sort of giving time for you, that whole kind of putting your mask on and making sure that you've got enough air coming through for you. So should we hear from, I'm very conscious of time, should we hear from one more?
I think maybe it's about accepting that if something's not high, that's fine, as long as it's okay and it's manageable where it is. And right now at the moment, my fun and leisure's a 4, and that's been 10, 11 and off the scale at times. You know, I've had that much fun as a middle-aged guy, and it is where it is right now, you know, and I've got other things going on.
Yeah, and it's, as you say, it's a balance across the whole kind of sort of scope here. Yeah, definitely. Fabulous. Well, I'm going to share with you in the chat box a blog I wrote a few months ago on personal resilience, which kind of covers some of what we talked about, but a fair bit more as well. So that comes from my website. There's details there to kind of connect and kind of stay in touch. So it'd be lovely if you want to kind of do that on LinkedIn or send me a message. It'd be fabulous. And the other thing I would say to you is to think about when you could continue some thinking around resilience over the coming days. Just the very fact that we've talked about it and we've resurfaced lots of different kind of elements, you know, the cogs will be turning, there'll be different ideas that come through, but allowing yourself some more reflection time, and also thinking about who else, either in this group or perhaps, you know, elsewhere in your network, who you may want to speak to about this even further to kind of allow you to, keep it front of mind. And that's it from me.
That's